Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lamar Butler Parker, financial consultant, Green Park Partners. We are ready to go today.
Yeah. And my name is Nancy Andino, and I am the founder of Taylor for Change, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker working with addictions, mindfulness, trauma, and we're ready to go today. We're going to be discussing emotional and physical responses to money. So when I think about emotional and physical responses to money, I think about anxiety that comes up for people and
Mhm.
how that manifests in their heart rate, how they experience sometimes like clammy hands, or they're not able to keep money in their pocket, like I gotta touch it, or absolutely numbness
Okay.
to when it comes to money. And then what also comes up for me is the thought of not enough for some people, or I
Okay.
have enough when in reality they don't have enough, and how that shows up in their budgeting and stuff. So what comes up for you?
Lack of sleep. I don't sleep at all when there's money issues.
Mm.
I'm up at 3 a.m. every morning, like clockwork.
What prompts it though? What do you consider like the money issue that shows up?
Um, if there's not enough, if there is, something with work that I needed to close or whatever have you, it becomes, it gets very stressful.
Yeah, yeah. So this actually is what brought us to be able to do this presentation workshop kind of thing, right?
Hmm.
I know for me, when I'm working with clients, it usually is that I don't have enough money, but then when we start digging deeper into it, it's they're overspending, and they're overspending because they're trying to not feel something
Right.
or to feel something new, although they know it's going to be a short like dopamine rush, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And when some of them, if they have ADHD or depression or OCD, it becomes an overwhelming feeling to like spending. Or even if they're having a manic episode, which turns into a lot of spending and impulsivity taking place without them really noticing it until they look around and see all the stuff they have. So their emotional response to money, I don't think is really in response to money in particular. I
Hmm.
think more in response to what the person is experiencing
Right.
in that moment, along with what we've discussed in the past and the other presentations as to how they've been raised to think about money and their relationship with money and their family relationship with money.
Okay. So you're saying it's more of a trigger.
Yes, I feel like it is more of a trigger that comes with a lot of consequences.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, in my profession, there are often times where they may not be always overspending. They just don't have enough money. Like, I don't remember it was a few years ago, there was a discussion about a Chase employer who got a certain salary, and after she paid rent and daycare and just food and car, she was still in the red.
Ooh, yeah,
And that was a big discussion they had about just people in general, not necessarily Chase. They used her as a platform because she works for such a large financial institution. But I don't, like, you could have plugged in someone that worked at Walmart or someone that worked at your local grocery store. It's still, you know there are often times where people overspend, but there's a lot of times where people just don't make enough to do the bare minimum.
yeah,
Once you get into food and the prices of food, and gas prices are not that bad, but other things are highly expensive, and salaries are still at a low.
yeah. Well, gas prices are not that bad for people who have,
Right.
right?
Right.
And when you share that, I can imagine the feeling that that person may have been experiencing was a lot of fear because they
Hmm.
already know I'm not going to have enough. right? And behind that fear also comes the anger. Like
Hmm.
I am angry that I don't have enough, or I
Yeah.
should have enough. And then what comes with that is the perception that I work for this big company, I am supposed to know, or I'm supposed to have enough. I should
Right.
know what to do with this. And the responsibilities that they've taken on, the ones that can be avoided, actually, like those are the ones that I want because I have a little bit more control over the mortgage payment or the rent that I have to pay, right? I can, I know I have to do that, but I can buy this for $20, $50 and it's going to make me feel good. And I'm going to have
Right.
control over once I get that. So the not enough money entering into the home, like you share, can equal out to a lot of shame and anxiety in the home,
Hmm.
not allowing the person to be as present as they can possibly be.
And it's a cycle too. Like you said, monthly, every month is the same thing. Like this is almost like it's a roller coaster where, all right, I got paid. All right, I'm already in the red for this week.
Yes.
All right, another bill is coming. Okay, I got paid 2 weeks later. All right, I paid that off. And you get like 2 days of calm
And then,
and 7 days of complete mayhem and stress.
yes.
It's a cycle that which causes the anger and the lack and the limited patience. You're snapping at family, and you have no patience at all for anything. And not that you don't have patience, but your brain is so focused on how am I going to make up this gap that you don't really want to deal with anything else from day-to-day life of your children just having homework to do, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
So will we say that self-sabotage begins to play a role in this?
um when you say self-sabotage, what do you mean?
Meaning, I know this is happening, I know this is coming up, but then sometimes we go into the additional stuff that
Hmm.
may not be really needed, but it makes us feel good. So we're logically understanding that this
Hmm.
is not really needed and I'm going to need this for later. But then emotionally, it's like, I need to be able to do this, right? Because they're the fear of the unknown, and the unknown from a lens of, I know I'm not going to have enough, but I am not sure if this not having enough is actually going to be the one that's going to break us.
Right. I think maybe in the beginning, but to me, I've found a lot of people that think it's just normal.
Mm,
Not having enough money is normal, so it's acceptable for them to be snippy around the 1st and the 15th, and it's just okay. That's just what it's going to be. But that's a real, it's a real thing. Like in the beginning, like I said, in the beginning, some people think, oh, this is not normal. I have to do better. There's some shame with it. And it can be even, there's some acceptance of this is what it is. I don't, I'm not getting a raise. I can't afford to go back to school and do better for myself. This is just where I'm at.
mm.
And that becomes, even though you still have that internal physical fear and anger that we talked about, like your body starts to create, and you still have it, but at some point, some people just accept it is what it is.
So it becomes the expectation.
Right.
And then that expectation, the
And that's
person,
when the self-sabotage comes in.
yes, right? And then that begins to feel like, so then there's a sense of powerlessness that takes place in hopelessness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So my mental health brain goes into like, well, how does the wishful thinking kicks in, or the lack of accountability? This is already going to happen,
Right.
so might as well do
Right.
X, Y, and Z, right? Or the unrealistic thinking begins to take place, where I can maybe to declare bankruptcy in 10 years, so might as well do this, or what will be fitting into that? How does the wishful thinking, or how have you experienced the wishful thinking as a financial consultant?
It's
in connection to the expectations that they place on themselves.
right. So it's kind of twofold. Like I see people that go, they don't have enough money, but they got every new piece of clothing. You know, a female, they have their nails done, they have their hair done. Um, and I guess mystically they think as long as I look good, it's gonna be okay.
Is that only for females, or does also
No,
happen
men
for
too.
males?
Men too. Like
Okay.
I was referring to men with clothes. Like men, they'll have whatever clothing, or they may have some jewelry, or sometimes men. Oh, I gotta go to the bar every night, even though come Friday, the money you spent at the bar is gonna be a negative balance.
And would we say that this is more culturally and ethnically sensitive? Because do all ethnicities respond in the same manner?
Do all ethnicities
Or the
respond?
ones
That's
that you've encountered respond in the same ethnicity or culture, respond in the same manner? Because you mentioned like the jewelry and the clothing, but
well,
when
yeah, I use that as a key, but all ethnicities have their own,
yes.
as individuals. I don't want to say, I don't like to say ethnicities. I say people are people.
Mm-hmm.
No matter, what ethnic background you come from, what neighborhood you come from. I've seen people that live in upper middle class areas that are struggling financially, but still find a way to go get a
Get
drink,
that suit
go get a suit, right? Go get their hair done.
or go get that nice car, the new car.
They got everything under the sun, but you look in their bank account and things are not what they appear to be on the outside.
Yeah.
You know.
So the fears that are underlying, because I always say there's an underlying fear and underlying insecurity that's showing up,
Hmm.
begins to impact their ability to just respond to what we would say are the basics.
Right.
But in reality, and basics because it will make logical sense. I'm not going to spend $300 when all I have in the bank is 50.
Right.
And then accrue all those fees that come along with it. So it becomes more of an impulsive response that's connected with anger, fear, sadness,
Hmm. Hmm.
not knowing what's going to happen later.
Hmm.
Kind of goes us into like ignoring and numbing,
Right.
right? And a lot of times people may feel like numbing is not emotional response, but it actually is. It's kind of like your body has decided, I'm just going to shut
Shut down.
down,
I'm done.
starting to
I'm
protect
done
myself.
stressing. I don't want
Yeah,
to think about it. I don't want to feel the pain and the
I'm
stress
just
about
gonna go with it. And whatever
whatever
happens,
happens,
happens.
happens. Whatever happens, I'm whatever.
Yeah. So it becomes either I'm feeling too much, I am feeling fully overwhelmed, I can't think clearly. And if I can't do those, I am going to stuff it away somehow,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Or I am going to fully avoid it.
Right.
So that kind of goes into what you shared earlier. I'm gonna go to the bar,
Right.
or I'm gonna go to the game store, or I'm
Hmm.
gonna go shopping. It doesn't matter what I'm shopping. Some people spend their money on trinkets.
Right. I'm
Just
gonna I'm gonna
something.
sit online and shop and just
Yeah,
buy whatever,
yeah, yeah,
or I'm gonna go eat. That's eating is an addiction just as much as
yeah,
anything else. So.
yeah, yeah. So when we're talking about the emotional response, I don't think a lot of people think about the overcompensating that begins to take place.
Hmm.
That overcompensation begins to decrease your what would we say, your tolerance level to the day-to-day challenges,
Right. Yeah.
right? And then when our tolerance levels are that low, we start into feeling the helplessness and the hopelessness and depression, right? Because our bills are piling up,
Hmm.
ignoring the responsibility is happening, ignoring the relationship that the person may be in, or
Yes.
being able to overcompensate with children if you have children, or a partner over drinking, overeating.
Hmm.
The lacking in motivation takes place because you start to feel as if no matter what you do, it's not going to make a change to how I feel.
I want to go back, and this is very important, to the relationship part,
Hmm.
because the neglect is essentially numbing. You're neglecting, for whatever reason, maybe you're embarrassed. You don't feel that you meet the standard of your partner or even your children. And so you start to neglect them,
Yeah.
their needs,
Yeah.
it becomes about money. And, most time it's really about the time and the connection. But if you can't do whatever you think your basic responsibilities are, it becomes more money than time and quality time and what needs to get done.
What will be considered the basic responsibility in the relationship?
Just bringing, if you're talking about financially, just bringing your whatever you bring to the table. If whatever your agreement is, if we split the bill 50-50, or maybe you're in a relationship as a man where you are the primary breadwinner and you can't provide that, and your wife is a
You're going on
stay-at-home
that belief that you're supposed to do that.
right,
Yeah.
right. And
So
I've
when
seen
gender roles and
situations
tradition begin to play a role in this.
where things are going down fast. The
Mhm.
ship is going down, and the guy's like, "No, I don't want my wife working,"
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
but he can't provide. And the children are not babies; they're teenagers in school. But he's still like, "Nah, she stay home and take care of my kids."
Yeah.
She's more than capable.
And that can happen in heterosexual relationships, but it can happen in any relationship, any
Hmm.
relationship that
Yeah.
takes these role that you're supposed to be the
Right.
provider,
Right.
whatever role you choose to have. And as a provider, you are not supposed to receive support from your partner, financial support, since we're talking about finances.
Right.
Then what comes about is the argument and
Hmm.
the fighting, and then the unrealistic expectations begin to take place in the home.
Hmm.
Because I am bringing in this, you're supposed to do more. Well, there isn't much more to do. I already did everything.
Right. Right. Right.
Right. And then we can start off with the resentment that
Hmm.
can start to take place going into the relationship, basically.
Right. Right. Or even if it may not be arguing, it can be just straight out emotional abandonment.
Yeah.
Like you
Yeah.
don't give them any. You don't. You're not even arguing. You're not even entertaining what they're saying. You're just like whatever.
Yeah. And that whatever is part of the numbing part.
Hmm.
Okay, then. So, along with those things, it's a lot of physical sensations that begin to take place,
Hmm.
right? And one of the things that's always talked about is what can lead to people to breakups is usually the finances. And I think it comes before infidelity, way
Right.
before, right? And if you
Absolutely.
don't have an agreement as to what are the financial expectations, then, or right, or what are our financial goals as a unit when we are in a unit, then it does not, then we're setting ourselves up for doom.
Hmm.
And then with that happening is like, okay, I'm having this sensation. And that's what I mean by somatic symptoms. Like the somatic symptoms is what your body begins to experience when you're feeling good or when you're feeling bad, when you're feeling anxious. It doesn't matter. You feel first. And
Right.
that sensation that gets experienced, then it can become something into a physical situation,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
medical conditions can begin to show up, or physical abuse can begin to show up,
Hmm.
or spending too
Emotional.
much time in the gym, trying to exert, all that begins to take place, and it begins to morph into other things.
Hmm. Yeah, and the emotional part of it, the depression, and like to me, sometimes physically you can see when someone is depressed
Yes, you
all
can.
over their body.
Sometimes.
Yeah,
Sometimes.
sometimes you can see it. I mean, if you know them well enough,
Yeah.
it may not be as obvious to someone that doesn't know them. But if you know them and there's a slight change in maybe the way they walk or even their facial expressions or even the way they're, if there's an excitable person and now they're no longer excitable, they're no longer talking, those physical changes often indicate, you know, wherever they're feeling. And again, talking about money, You know, I've seen people where on payday, they are the most energetic person moving.
Mm.
On Monday, they are the most miserable person moving.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you do when you're trying to assist somebody with finances and
So,
emotional,
mhm,
physical is so blatant that you see it, and
right.
what they're hoping for is like, the lifeline that they're hoping for.
Hmm.
You as a financial consultant see, yeah, you're not going to get that lifeline. That's
Yeah, I think we had this discussion before. I try not to delve into, even though I'm aware of it, I try not to delve into the emotions. I really have to stay with the realistic outlook of what's going on, whatever that is, whether if you're just trying to save money. I was reading somewhere before that the majority, two things I was reading, which was shocking to me. One is the majority of people in America do not have more than $4,200 saved.
that can be a lot of money for some people.
That is, and I'm talking about saved retire. I'm talking about cumulative savings, retirement, checking, investment, whatever it is. They don't have more than $4,200 to their name, which is extremely scary. It's got to
It
be
actually
scary.
makes me feel like it would be very depressing and sad to actually know the reality of what the majority of people are experiencing here.
Right. Right.
And just
Yeah.
hearing it gives a sense of like powerlessness, because there isn't much that can be done if
Right.
you're watching it watching it from the outside, but also
Hmm.
knowing personally people that experience this and what that looks like, and the uncertainty that comes with that, and the future medical conditions that will come
Right.
with that because of the
And it's weird
insecurity,
because,
like the lack of safety that comes with that.
and you know what's is weird? What's crazy about it is it's not, it has nothing to do with salary.
Yeah,
Because I've seen people that make 30,000 a year have 50, $60,000 in the bank.
yeah,
I've seen people that make $150,000 a year literally have $100 in the bank.
yeah, yeah. Which kind of goes into their emotional and physical responses. It goes to the relationship with money. It goes with like, what are you willing to do? How do you hold yourself accountable? Right? I remember one of the things my mom shared with me when I had graduated from college. The first thing she said, like, it don't matter how much money you make, it's how much money you're gonna keep and how you're
Hmm.
gonna. And I was making, I think, $35,000 a year.
Right.
With the $35,000 a year, she did an agree. We made an agreement because she's like, you can't be living in my house the way you go out. And I'll be concerned. I was gonna be very concerned, waiting for you to all times of night for you to come home when this is where we live. So you're
Right.
gonna save your money. You're gonna work and save your money. You're gonna be out of this house and buy your own place. Which I'm really glad she was able to say you're gonna buy your own place.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah,
within
that was an intentional wording. Buy.
Yes, buy. She did not say you're gonna rent. She said you're gonna buy your own place.
Hmm.
And that was 2 decades ago. So it was a very different market.
Right.
But it was still money. And I was still not making enough.
Hmm.
But within the 2 year mark, I was already looking for places and bought my first place. And all I was making was like 35,000.
Right.
And during that time, some friends and people are like, how are you gonna do this? How are you gonna pay for this? Like, don't worry, I'm gonna figure it out. And
Right.
2 properties later, yes, right. But one of
Hmm.
the things that happened is somebody that was making like 5 times more what I was making. Like, how the hell did you do this when I had to wait so many years to do it? Well, I didn't have any vices,
Right.
right? And that helped. And my relationship with money was more my mother guided that.
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
It did bring a little bit of anxiety, but also brought a lot of responsibilities. Like, it's not how much money you're making, is how much money you get to keep, and what are you going to do to keep that money. So is it worth getting this because it's going to make you feel good, or
Right.
right? And that became like a rule for me to live by, which allow me to not feel so anxious about money.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like that's starting to show back up again, the anxiety. I'm like, am I gonna have enough when I retire? You know, as a business owner, how is this going to look? You know, we don't get retirement as business owners.
Right.
Like you
Right.
get to save your retirement, and am I saving enough?
Right.
So that brings a lot of emotions connected to it. Where then I have to bring in my logical thinking. Hello, come back, Nancy, bring yourself back. This is the reality.
Right. Right. I think that speaks to your discipline, which oftentimes gets people in trouble. Like there's always going to be life changing circumstances that happen. Some people have more than others. Some people are a little bit more focused than others.
Mhm.
There's always a level of discipline that
And with
will.
that different discipline comes mental health.
Yes.
Right? Because not everybody's going to be able to have the same discipline if it's something that they're not capable of
Right.
at the moment, right? The sad thing is we live in a place that it doesn't care whether you're capable or not.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we respond to that so that way our physical conditions don't worsen, right? Those symptoms don't worsen or those emotions don't worsen.
Right.
And we learn to cope with that. Nobody's teaching us that.
I don't think most people know how to. Who's you
We
gonna
haven't
teach?
been taught that. How are we supposed to?
That's what I was saying. Like, if your parents don't know how to cope, how are they gonna teach you how to cope?
Yeah. So what would be the recommendation for to learn how to cope with the anxieties that we experience with money, the fears that show up, the anger that shows up, the frustrations with how the system, the rents continuing to go up, although landlords' mortgages are not going up, which I never understand that. Right.
But landlords' expenses are going up.
Is it going up enough to have to raise the rent by such high percentages?
No, there's always outliers where people gouge the system, but I can tell you from personal experience, and what I was paying in like light and water year to year was going up 2 to 5% a year.
Got it.
You know what I mean? And those things are like they don't percentage wise, they probably don't seem like a lot, but when you start to add up, specifically if you have property, when you start to add up the money that, all right, last year in December, my light bill or gas bill was, let's just say $100. The next year it was $115. Now, $15 a month ain't a lot, but if you multiply that 15 by 12 and then you add on to that whatever other expenses, then you add on to that, this is how landlords get stressed out because, you got to fix stuff up. Things happen. The roof is leaking. Da, da, da. Every year, something as a homeowner, something comes up.
So the
And so,
challenge becomes the landlord begins to have similar emotional
yes,
and physical responses to the tenant, and then
yes,
there's the domino effect that begins to take place.
yes,
Right.
and you
So
and you have to account for maybe the tenant lost their job. So there's a lot like, even though it almost appears that people with money have no money issues because people always go, if I had that amount of money,
emotions take over, and it doesn't matter how
emotion,
much money you have, your emotions are gonna kick in whatever
emotion,
relationship you've had with money and growing
trigger.
up and
Yep,
how you were,
yep,
nurtured and to believe your beliefs about money is going to show up no matter how much money you have,
right.
right? Kind of goes into why people hoard money.
Yep.
Either people overly spend or those that hoard money,
They don't
right?
spend anything.
Yeah. And would that be a lot of the millionaires and so many millionaires that are being created? Does that connect to some level?
No, I don't think it has anything to do with millionaires because
The
millionaires write
hoarding
off a
aspect
ton.
of it.
The what?
The hoarding aspect of it.
I don't think so. I don't. because you can become a millionaire just off of interest. You're not necessarily hoarding anything. You've invested properly.
Got it.
You know what I mean? I think hoarding comes in when you're excessively cheap or frugal, or what's that show where this, I forgot the name of the show, but this person was like,
I think hoarding comes in when you are excessively focusing on more and more and more and more and more.
right, yes, yes, yeah. It was a show. It still comes on, I think, where the person was literally like, like they had 3 kids and everyone had to bathe in the same bathwater.
Yeah.
Or they they had like toothpaste, and they were like, oh, I'm saving money. Like, to me, that's hoarding money because you're not spending, not because it's a bad time to spend. You're not spending because you think, oh, this is the proper way to go about
Or
extreme.
you think this is the way that I can survive because
Right,
their body is still in a state of like
right.
survival, right? And these are part of their defenses and now they can feel safe and protect themselves.
Defenses, yes, that's it. Absolutely,
Okay.
it's a survival technique.
Yes, yes. It's not something that's like, well, that's just how it's supposed to be. It's actually, this is what I have to do in order to protect myself.
Right.
It's bringing us into like the coping skills that people can begin to practice if and when they are experiencing the sensations, right? So the
Mm-hmm.
emotions, the physical sensations that accompany it. And I will always say mindfulness,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
meditation. And it's not that I say it from a space like I want you to take 5 to 10 minutes to meditate. It's literally just, no, I just want you to just pause and think
Right.
about what you're feeling,
Right.
right? Feel what you're feeling, slow down your breath. And
Mm-hmm.
by slowing down your breath, you're going to automatically slow down your thoughts because your brain needs oxygen and your lungs are going to be the ones that are guiding it.
Right.
Right. So it doesn't matter what we're doing and what situation we're in, being mindful, breathing, meditating is going to be able to give you what you need in order to get to the next step. Right. And the next step can be allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to ask for, I need some support or I need to learn something
Mm-hmm.
in relation to finances. Um, Something that I need to set a new boundary. And the boundary that I need to set is I can only spend this amount of money until I'm able to get X, Y, and Z. But making the boundary, deciding on that boundary, not because of fear or anger, right? Or because like it's a last resort, more of like, well, no, I'm actually feeling good right now. So since I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually feeling good in this moment, let me see what's a realistic boundary that I can set for myself so that way I'm not experiencing the same thing next week.
Right.
So we take advantage of the good feeling that we're having and our body feeling not in fight or flight that
Mm-hmm.
can allow us to, okay, I can make the decision. Being able to communicate. And this can be with friends, it can be with your partners, it
Mm-hmm.
can be with roommates, whoever it is that plays a role in this, communicating the real concern and communicating the reality of this
Right.
is how much money I'm bringing in, this is how much money is going out, and I need some support.
Right.
And allowing ourselves to be accountable for our behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
the accountability comes with taking responsibility for the actions that you're taking on without judging yourself,
Right.
right? So the judgment of, well, you should have, it actually doesn't become that. It's kind of like, well, I didn't know that. Now that I know this, I can do X, Y, and Z, right? And
Okay.
being able to inform the support. Hey, when you see me doing this, just let me know, hey, I'm seeing that you're doing that, right? Being able to agree on a word or something that will allow you to listen when somebody's calling you out or help
Mm-hmm.
you hold yourself accountable for your behavior. So that's one of the things that comes up for me when I think about coping in general,
Mm-hmm.
life challenges. But when it comes to coping with finances, we need to be very aware and mindful as to what steps we're willing to take, and it can allow
Right.
us to get to the other goals.
Right. Right. I think for me, I try to impart. Again, you can't really delve into emotions on my end,
Hmm?
I think for me, the probably the best thing to do is set boundaries and accountability.
Mhm.
And the way to do that when you're talking about in terms of finances is like back in the day, it wasn't so easy, but now there's a ton of set it and forget it type of bank accounts where you can just go, all right, every week I want $5 taken from this account to that account that I have no immediate access to.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's setting boundaries because we know it comes out whenever Friday, whatever it is. And that's the accountability comes in is I did it. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's not a like drawn out thing where I got to go physically into it because, for most people, as soon as they got to physically make it an act, that's where the lack of discipline starts to show its face.
Yeah.
So the accountability is me going, all right, every month that's going to go out. It's the only like similar to your retirement. Before you get your check, whatever is going out, let
Yeah.
it go out. I don't have to think about it. Matter of fact, I forget about it until some people forget about it permanently until even when they leave the job, they're like, oh, I got
Yeah.
$10,000 at my old job, and that takes the emotion out for people.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And that
Okay.
takes out the responsibility for them to be like, oh, what am I going to do with this money? Or I got to do it myself. I got to, back in the day, you had to go into the bank, you had to fill out your slip, put your account number. I want this amount to go into here. You don't even have to do that no more. And it
Yeah.
makes it easier, but it also makes people a lot lazier in regards of being mindful
Yeah.
of what's going on and how they're spending because the card they don't even know how they're spending. They're just tapping. Now you don't even have to swipe and you just tap, tap,
They
tap.
just use their phone now. Now you
Right,
can just use your phone. So it
right,
doesn't really allow you to differentiate between what you want and what you actually need.
exactly. So there's with technology there is two sides of the coin. But if you can just be slightly aware of what you're doing, it'll make things a little bit less stressful if you do it properly.
You also had like increasing monthly funds, but
Mhm.
who can actually do that if they're already feeling overwhelmed
Right,
with their regular job?
right. Yeah, yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah, you may, if you're a single mom, you may not have the time, or a single dad, you may not have that time to increase. I was looking at something yesterday, which another thing that was crazy to me. It said women are making the same amount they were in 1995,
Yeah.
and women make only 52 cents for every dollar.
I think that one is old.
Was it? Which one? I just saw this yesterday in the news.
What
Literally,
I will be curious to know what statistics are they using
yeah.
and who did the research for it. But yes,
Which one? The 52 cents or the?
the 52 cents, and that women
Yeah,
are making what they were making back in 1995. Because I remember hearing those statistics years ago.
yeah.
So it kind of goes into like, well, then it sounds like we have not progressed as it relates to any money situation.
Right. Well, I don't. Salaries are not going up.
No, no. It's actually going down when you think about how much money people are, how much time people are investing in jobs versus how much they're getting paid
Right.
for.
That's what I'm saying. So if those numbers have changed, I don't think they've changed much.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So if I feel like with this presentation that we did today, it was not as long as before, not as animated as before because we're talking about emotions
Mhm.
and the what is actually what the people actually experience when we're talking about money,
Right.
particularly money in this stage where we're at, not only in society but politically. The instability and the not really knowing brings a lot more emotions into this, and I think we need to be able to have more compassion for what we are experiencing to decrease some of the anxiety that's happening, because it's not you, the person is not an individual, it's an individual experience happening as a collective.
You know what I'm just thinking when you said politically? To me, it seems like every politically note that each politician or each candidate is focused on has a backdrop of money.
Yes.
If you're talking about females' rights, right, to abortion is going to cost us money. If she has the baby, it's going to cost. If she doesn't, it's going to cost. When you're talking about immigrants, they're taking our jobs away from us. We're paying for them to get medical. Da da da. They're taking our jobs away from us. Like it seems like every
They
thing
don't
has.
talk so much about that when they're giving money to other countries.
Listen, and then if you go into, even if you go further, all of those politicians don't really feel the money constraint of your normal person.
That would be an assumption on our part, because they're
Why?
still human.
Yeah, they're
They
human.
have their own emotions with money.
Yes.
They are also salaried, right? They may
Who?
have the government
Yeah,
employees, but
that's
no,
but their
they're
salary is
salary.
a small part of their income. Like that, if they
Well,
didn't
that would
have
be also the assumption, right? Because they still have to pay rent. They still have to do, they still putting in time, because I know people that have had political office, and the time that comes in, that goes into it, gets
no, they earn
into
their
their
money.
ability to make other money sometimes,
Yes, they
right?
earn their money.
Yeah. So, and at the end of it, it comes with our emotional connections to that experience,
Mm-hmm.
the way politics plays a role in it, society plays a role in it, our family, cultural norms, societal norms play a role in every aspect as to how we feel about money
Right.
and what we physically experience with money, that then impacts our ability to take action.
Yes, it does. It definitely does impact how we address it.
Yeah. And this kind of gets me into the wishful thinking, which is also part of the idea of avoiding, like, oh, I wish this wasn't an issue.
You only hit the lotto.
It would not. Well, even when people hit the lotto, they don't know how to what to do with their money.
They end up broke
They
within
end
5
up
years.
broke than probably beforehand. So, but it does give a sense of, I feel like we need to do more
Mm-hmm.
to educate people, more to provide tools, so we're going to be able to manage it, particularly when we are in a space that everything continues to go up except people's salaries, right? And everything continues to go up in reference to how much energy you're exerting,
Right.
how many more hours you're working,
Yeah.
and your emotional stamina is what begins to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Physical stamina. So my concern as a mental health professional is that as to how people are going to be able to cope with the more, the what is continuing to be added to their bag, right?
Right.
And that's the scary part.
I think majority of people will be numb as opposed to cope.
Well, numbing is part of a coping. The problem is that there's a lot that gets lost in that, right?
Exactly.
We have both positive and negative coping skills, and the
Mm-hmm.
negative ones that lead us to avoid and to not feel are the ones that get us into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
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 Okay. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, and looking forward to seeing you at our next workshop, which will be the second Thursday in September. I believe is the 12th, September 12th.
I
And we'll
think
keep you updated on that. Thank you.
check out the website.
MyMindMyMoney.com.